Sorry, just trying to get this.
All right, folks, we're going to get started with our next speaker. In June of 2014, if you're involved in law enforcement or anyone in the world, you may have been tracking what was going on in Moncton, New Brunswick. 3 RCMP officers were killed in line of duty, and there was a manhunt for the person responsible. It was a significant incident in social media. Alex Vass is part of the New Brunswick RCMP Strategic Communications Unit, and he's come to join us today to talk about the role that social media played in that day. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks a lot, Phil. Glad to be here, everyone. This is my 3rd Smile conference, and if you can keep coming back, I recommend it. It's a great conference. The networking is excellent, but the ideas and tips that you pick up each and every time are amazing. A little bit about myself, first of all. Like Genevieve, I'm a former journalist, worked journalism for 25 years before making the switch to the RCMP in New Brunswick about 10 years ago. I'm a civilian member and work in the Strategic Communications section. There are 7 of us. One of my coworkers, Bridget Richard, stand up, Bridget, let everyone know you're here, is here. We're representing the RCMP in New Brunswick, our unit, but there's a total of 7 of us, and that includes our supervisor, 4 strategists, an MRO, a media relations officer for our counterparts in the US, a PIO, and then we also have an internet/publications manager. So that's our unit. To give you a little bit of idea of the RCMP in New Brunswick, we have approximately 1,200 employees. About 2/3 of them are sworn police officers. The rest would be civilian members such as myself. That would also include public service employees and municipal employees to provide the support to the uniformed officers. We police about 500,000 people in the province of New Brunswick, which is in Eastern Canada. Don't be mistaken that Toronto is Eastern Canada. It goes just a little bit further. And the entire population is about 755,000. The other 200,000 or so of the population are policed by municipal police forces. Today I'm going to talk to you about what we're doing in social media. The June 4th incident is one matter that took up a lot of our time in June of 2014. But I'm also going to talk to you about a couple of other projects, social media projects that we launched that we have been very successful on. One's involving an impaired driving, and the other one involves trying to identify victims of sexual exploitation. To give you an idea of how long we've been involved in social media, like most agencies, since about 2009, we started first with YouTube, and then we ventured into Facebook, and then finally into Twitter in about 2009, 2010. And that's kind of been our progression. But what we've recognized in the past 2 to 3 years is that social media is becoming more and more a part of our communication strategies. It's as important as a news release, an interview, media strategy, key messages. You have to incorporate all of that. And what we're also noticing is that we're using it in many different ways, and I'm going to show you as I move through the presentation. But what we've been able to use social media for is to help catch a killer, to go around the world in search of victims of sexual exploitation, and we're also using it for public safety messaging by following and mimicking, really, the trends that we're already seeing on social media. So I'm sure many of you have seen a news conference such as this. If you'll notice, the reporters are looking down. They're not taking notes. What are they doing? They're on their device. They're tweeting the event as it's happening. So even though you're providing a news conference, what's happening is the reporters are no longer having to write down the information, take notes, go back to the newsroom, and then put together the story to put out. They're tweeting at the same time the event is happening. So as a result, you have to have a presence on social media. If you're not there, your absence is going to be noticed right away, especially if individuals are following, want to know more about law enforcement, they're interested in your police agency. If they go and search for you and you're not there, others will be telling your story. And by having the ability to tell your own story, you have an ability to guide that conversation, carry it in the direction you want it to go, state the information you want, but it doesn't allow others to hijack it. And if they do, if you have a presence, you're then able to get out there, correct that information, because you'll be seen as the authoritative source of that information because the information is coming directly from your law enforcement agency. So I think some of you may have seen this. I think that gives a pretty good reputation, good idea of where social media is at today. It's more or less who can get that first picture, who can get that first video on their Twitter account, on their Instagram, on Facebook. The facts, they don't matter because they just want to get that image. They want to be the first. Citizen journalism, wanting to scoop even the media. So we're seeing more and more of this. But what we're not seeing is the facts associated with the incidents. And that's the role that you as a police agency can have if you have a presence on social media. So these are the 3 accounts that we use, and this is it. I know that there are many others, and we've heard about Periscope, we've heard about Blab, Snapchat, Instagram, but for the RCMP in New Brunswick, these are the 3 accounts we've focused on. As I mentioned, we started off in YouTube and then branched off into Facebook and Twitter. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police is a bilingual organization, which means we provide service in both official languages in Canada, that's English and French. So our YouTube channel is a bilingual channel, but we have separate Facebook and Twitter accounts, an English account and a French account. So that's how we operate, and we use translation services in order to translate everything that we put out. So we're using social media as a communications tool, and it's a tool we're using to solve and prevent crime. That's how we view social media. Many other organizations look at it from a PR role. We strictly look at us as a section within the RCMP, a support service. How can we help our frontline officers? How can we help our investigators? That's using social media. That's the tool that we use. The beauty of this tool is it allows you, as we've heard, is that you can engage people. You can talk back and forth with the people in your community. You can hear what concerns them. You can get public safety information out to them. You can let them know what you are doing. And the beauty of it, you don't have to rely on the media to be your messenger anymore. There was a time when we had to call the news conferences and we had to bring the media together because it was the only way we could get the information out to the public we served. That's no longer the case. The public is interested in what you're doing, so what will they do? They'll find you on social media, and they want to hear what you're doing. So use it. But don't get me wrong, we still write news releases. We still post news releases to our website. So it's always there, but through our social media accounts, what we do is we bring people back to that website. Everything links back. Our website for the RCMP New Brunswick is the foundation of everything that we do, because that is an authoritative source. It's a credible source. When people go to the website, they see the RCMP crest. They know that this is the RCMP, and it's not information being shared third, fourth, fifth hand. It's actually coming from the RCMP in New Brunswick. It also allows you to respond to questions, and we've heard some of that today from Iceland and getting their inquiries by way of social media. We also hear a lot from the public, and I'm going to show you later on how it played a role in catching a killer. So take a look at this cartoon. And when social media first came to the forefront, I think this is what many were doing. They were going, there, everybody's jumping on board, maybe we should too, but without a plan, without an idea of how they were going to use it. Within the RCMP New Brunswick, our communications objective is very simple: using communications to solve and prevent crime. So everything that comes out of our unit speaks to that objective. There'll be the odd stuff that we'll put in and we'll look at and say, no, for public interest, we'll put that out. But it's always coming back to how can we help our frontline officers. So I guess my suggestion to any of you is know what your objective is. What is it that you want to use social media for, and then go out and tap into it, as opposed to saying, oh, it's there, how can we use it? Think of making sure you have a plan before you jump on board. So we're looking at some of those other platforms right now, but right now we're still not ready to make the leap from the 3 basic social media channels that we're now using. So in terms of making a successful social media post, what do you need? You need these 4 elements. It needs to be timely. So in other words, you need to get the information out when the public's expecting information. So is it an incident you have underway? Is it an operation that's unfolding in the community? A particular neighborhood is seeing it, and they're wondering what the heck's going on. Well, before someone else can get on social media and let the public know, why don't you get on social media? It's got to be timely. It also has to be accurate. Social media operates at light speed, as we know. The tweet goes out, it's picked up, it's shared, Facebook, it goes. So you have to make sure that you have your information as accurate as possible, because once that Facebook post is made and it's gone, there's no way for you to lasso it, whip it back and say, oh, I didn't want to put that out there. And then when you do make the correction, it's challenging. You have that inaccuracy that was maybe a typo even, and you want to try and correct it. So now there are two streams of information out there. So always be careful. Make sure that you're accurate. You can correct it, and you should, as quickly as you can. Basically, a good little slogan around our shop is mess up, fess up, dress up. So if you have something out there that's not what you want, correct it as quickly as you can, and then just keep repeating it so that you're filling the space with the accurate information. Also, by being timely, by being accurate, you're also impacting your credibility, your reputation as a police organization, because then the public will come to depend on you for that source. You will be the first source of information for an incident that's happening in your community that's affecting your residents. And the beauty of that is, if you're doing a good job, if you end up taking a misstep, you're actually only making a small withdrawal from your credibility bank account. They'll understand. They'll go, oh no, the last few times they've been bang on. This one time, they'll cut you some slack. So make sure that you're always there and present. The final part, the call to action. We've all talked to people, we've all been in conversations, and somebody's passed on a bit of information to you. Then in your mind, you're going, what am I supposed to do with that information? That's great that I know that now, but what do I do with it? And when you're dealing with Twitter, you're dealing with a particular Twitter with 140 characters, it's a short little bit of information you're putting out there. And if the person reading it on their smartphone is going, that's great, what do I do with it? Have that call to action in there. And I'll show you some examples of call to action as I move forward in the presentation. But remember, that call to action can be simple as, please retweet, please share. You've made a request. And most people will go, yeah, okay, I can do that. And boom, all of a sudden, your message is spreading farther, faster, and all you've added is 2 words, please retweet. June 4th, 2014, Moncton, New Brunswick. These 3 officers lost their lives in the line of duty. On the left, as you're looking at it, Constable Fabrice Juvaudin. In the middle, Constable Dave Ross. And on the right is Constable Doug Larsh. I worked with all 3 of these members. They worked out of the Kodiak detachment. I was posted there for a short time before switching over to the divisional. But I knew all 3 of them and knew them quite well. They were responding to an incident of a shooter in a residential area. It was shortly after 7 o'clock in the evening on June 4th. It was a sunny, hot day. How do I know that? I was dressed in shorts and sandals and a t-shirt that evening, thinking about mowing my lawn. I didn't get there. Anyway, I was called in, and we had to then start dealing with this incident. These 3 members lost their lives. 2 others were injured in the incident. What social media allowed us to do that particular night was reach out to the residents of Greater Moncton, particularly the neighborhood where the shooter was walking down residential streets. And we were able to get the message out to the public as what they could do. The reason why? Radio had gone to automation. 6 o'clock, the announcer's gone home, and it's all computer music. The local newspaper in our community was behind a paywall. So unless you were a paid subscriber to that newspaper, you weren't going to get any information they were posting on their website that night. The local television news was not for another 4 hours away. It was on at 11 o'clock. So I had just returned from the SMILE conference in Tampa at the latter part of May, along with our media relations officer. And when we both landed at the office, we both looked at one another and said, yeah, we're going to put this out on Twitter and Facebook, aren't we? And that's exactly what we did. So we started putting out messages as soon as we got into the office. This was one of the first ones. So as you see, it's the Kodiak, and that's the detachment name, RCMP New Brunswick, that's us. advises the public in the Hildegard Ryan Road area. We were very specific. Few lived in this neighborhood on these streets, and if you lived nearby, you were going to pay attention. Your head was going to pop up. And we were asking them to remain inside. The call to action, remain inside. The reason why? We had a shooting incident underway. So in those 140 characters, you read that, you knew right away what was going on, and you as a citizen of Greater Moncton knew what you had to do. Stay inside. So that was the beginning of numerous tweets that we put out. Again, timely. Incident was unfolding as it was moving along. It was accurate to the best of our ability. We're getting the information of where the shooter is from the 911 calls that are coming in. So we had two areas, and in particular, two kind of neighborhood areas that had to be on the lookout. And there was the call to action. So in terms of reputation, we were making sure that the public could depend on us for useful, accurate, timely information as this incident was unfolding. All the tweets that we put out, and we put out a tweet approximately every 30 minutes that night. We put it on Twitter, we also put it on Facebook. The tweets were all created by myself as the comm strategist in consultation with the incident commander. I was there with the incident commander as this was unfolding. The incident commander didn't have to write the tweets, nor should he. He's too busy coordinating the whole response. So by being a part of that inner circle, I was able to understand what was developing. I then created the tweets, and then all I had to do was show them to the incident commander for his approval. His approval was necessary because I didn't want to put out information that would affect our operation from a policing side. We need to get information out, but we can't jeopardize any more lives in the field. So he had final say in all the tweets. But he didn't have to think about what they were. I wrote them, he approved them. What's interesting is that throughout the whole process, our number of followers grew, but people came to trust the information we had. And when the shooter was eventually arrested, a lot of the general public had tweeted out, arrested, it's over. A lot of people replied to those tweets and said, I'm going to wait for the RCMP New Brunswick to confirm. I will wait for their tweet. Our reputation and credibility is providing reliable information in a timely manner was solidified with those tweets that we started seeing. We only noticed those after the fact. But that was an important element in what was happening as this event was unfolding. So, as I said, we put out tweets about every 30 minutes. Again, here's the call to action information in every one of them. They're circled in the red boxes. Don't give out police locations, please. We had some people saying, oh, the police are in my backyard. They're heading down such and such a street. We didn't know whether the shooter was acting alone or had accomplices that may have been monitoring social media, in particular our feed, or whether he had a smartphone on him himself and was watching. We did not know. So we had to get that information out to the general public. So as I said, we put these out about every 30 minutes. Even though the situation was unfolding, we may not have had new information, we still put out the fact, stay inside, call 911 if you see something. Why? Because the smartphone was probably what many people were following the news on. Because afterwards, when we looked at the tweets, we saw tweets from people saying, I'm in my bathroom with my family, we're scared. I'm in my basement waiting for news that they're going to catch the killer. So what was happening was that this device was the main communication tool we had. It wasn't traditional media that night. Yes, the traditional media started to follow as news of the event and the incident went out. But this was the device that people were looking for information and updates on what was happening in Moncton. So when I talk about social media, of course, an incident like this, 3 police officers killed in the line of duty, 2 more injured. We received calls from CNN. We received calls from the BBC. Our media relations officer's phone lit up. It was blinking non-stop. But we didn't have time to answer the phone. The reason was that if you answered the phone and took all the messages that were left, there were twice as many left when you were listening to those ones. There was no way we could call everybody back. How could we communicate with the public and the traditional media? Social media. I'll let you know that our first news release on the shooting of the 5 police officers came out approximately 18 hours after the incident began. That was the first news release we put out. All the information, however, was available on our Twitter account and our Facebook accounts. All the information was there as we were proceeding along on this incident. So what happened was the news organizations recognized this. They started following our Twitter accounts, and we went from approximately 8,000 followers, which we thought was a great start to our Twitter account. Within 24 hours, we had peaked out at about 55,000 Twitter followers. Just that fast. It happened so quickly that we nearly got put into Twitter jail. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with Twitter jail, but that's the algorithm that Twitter has to basically spot spam. If they start seeing one account growing in numbers really quickly, they'll shut it down for about 24 to 48 hour period because they want to then verify, is this a legitimate account? At the time, we weren't a checkmark verified account. We were verified on the fly thanks to the Twitter Canada News and Government Twitter employee that works in Canada who was watching it develop. Otherwise, we then would have lost that. So pay attention to that. If your account is not verified with the blue check, try and see if you can get that done so that you avoid that happening to you, or the possibility of that happening to you if you end up with a major incident in your community. So we use social media to advise traditional media of situational updates, of news conferences that we were holding, because we knew they were watching it all. We were still sending out some notifications by way of email, but social media was the tool we communicated with the traditional media and the general public at large. What was interesting was we would start seeing our Twitter posts appear on the news agency's website, because that's how they were quoting us. That's how they were telling their audience that this actually came from the RCMP New Brunswick, because they screen captured our tweet. We saw it repeated on the television news as the event unfolded, but many of them included us in Storyfy as they were collecting and aggregating all the tweets that night about what was happening. So when we talk about an incident like this, we talk about, and through social media, we're always talking about telling a story. Well, every story has a beginning, every story has a middle, every story has an end, and then it's complete. So for us, the beginning of the story, of course, was the initial incident, the shooting of our 5 officers. From there, it was the 30 hours that spanned in terms of trying to find him. Where was he? And it was 30 hours later that we were able to make the arrest. And for your information, he is in prison. He's not eligible for parole for 75 years for the new federal government. That was very key and important for a lot of people, because that meant that none of the children of these 3 fallen officers would ever have to go to a parole board hearing. So that was very critical, because all 3 of the fallen members had children, have children. So that was very important in terms of the legal process of what happened there. So that's the beginning. The middle of the story is the regimental funeral. This was a big event. We're holding a regimental funeral for 3 fallen RCMP officers. We held it in the local arena, maximum seating there 7,000, maybe close to 8,500 when you take into the floor space. That was the next event that we had to get moving on as a comms team. It was important because the public now wanted to know, where's the regimental funeral happening? Where's the funeral procession taking place? Because they wanted to watch, they wanted to pass on their condolences. So we had to get that information out. So that was part 2 of what was going on in terms of the middle of the story. How many people remember this particular image? This was carried by Canadian Press. That's Danny the dog. That's Danny. He's a police service dog for the RCMP. Dave Ross was his handler. So he's picking up the scent of his handler off the steps as the funeral procession is leaving the regimental funeral that afternoon. What's interesting is that this image captured the attention of the nation and around the world. What the public wanted to know was, what's going to happen to Danny? What's Danny's future? He's lost his handler. What is going to happen to him? We recognized this as soon as we saw the news coverage the afternoon of the funeral procession, and we were monitoring what was going on, and we saw these images pop up. And it was also popping up on our social media pages. Well, what about Danny? What's going to happen to him? So we brainstormed, and this is what we came up with. It's Danny frolicking in a brook. I shot this video the day after the regimental funeral. What we did was we posted this particular video on YouTube. We embedded it on our webpage with a news release that explained that Danny was a working police dog. He was not a pet, as many people in the general public perceived Danny to be. We had to explain that Danny would be reassigned to a new handler. And we also reached out to Dave Ross's wife, Rachel, and said, Rachel, we would like to include a quote in our news release from you. The public needs to know that Danny was a working dog. Would you agree to something? And she said, yes. And she gave me the perfect quote. I talked to her. She said, Danny, whenever he saw Dave heading to the door, he thought it was time to go to work, and he was right behind him, eager to work. So we put the clip in to let the public know this is a working police dog. We received 100,000 views on our YouTube channel from this video. And let me show you the other numbers that we got. The reach on Facebook alone, on our English Facebook account, was 852,000. That was the reach. It was shared 38 times and had more than 2,500 likes. So what we did was the public was looking for information. We made sure they got it. And it was as simple as putting on a YouTube video of Danny frolicking in the water. We did not invite the media. I was there alone with the dog handler responsible for looking after Danny, took the video, we posted it on YouTube, and we put out the news release. This video, the YouTube video, appeared on most of the news organizations' websites as they repeated it and played it in order for the public to know what was going on. The Twitter message was short. All it said was the future of Danny. That was it. And the link to the YouTube video. We knew what the public was looking for and that was what the information they wanted. So as soon as they saw the future of, click, 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 and it took off. Did we do the right thing? Yes. These are some of the comments that, and we got all kinds of comments from the general public. This is wonderful news. Thank you so much. I was wondering what would happen to him. And he captivated the entire nation by just jumping up and smelling his handler's Stetson. So that then told us that, geez, we did the right thing. So that was the middle, the end. So the end is the regimental funeral is completed. We have the shooter arrested. So we have to bring a conclusion. The conclusion was a message of thanks from our commanding officer for the RCMP in New Brunswick, as well as the officer in charge of the Kodiak detachment. They put out 2 statements thanking the community for their support, because the support we received from the community was phenomenal. We saw people coming up shaking the members' hands on the street. We saw food coming into the detachment, just tray upon tray upon tray. Coffee. The community wanted to reach out. They were feeling our pain as well, and this was how they could express themselves. But what we didn't realize was that that was only the false ending of this story. The real ending was actually this year on June the 4th, 2015, 1-year anniversary. This event had such an impact on the community that there was an expectation from the public that there'd be something that day. And what, they weren't sure, but they knew that they had to come together or do something. Luckily, the RCMP musical ride was touring Eastern Canada, touring the Maritime provinces. We were able to put on a free performance of the musical ride for the general public. And we had a few thousand people show up for that show. It was incredible to see the outpouring coming from everyone. But the one thing that we did from a strategic comms perspective was we did another video. The idea of this video was to in a sense, set the trend or set the tone for what would be discussed on June the 4th. So on leading up to June the 4th, we shot a video. I'm going to play that video for you now, and then afterwards I'm going to explain what went into it and why we went this particular route. Yeah, no, it's going to come right here. No, wait. It's going to come. So the final person you saw giving the final salute was Assistant Commissioner Roger Brown, the commanding officer for the RCMP in New Brunswick. The two members you saw in red surge towards the end of the video, those were the two members who were injured on that incident on June 4th, 2014. And the three ladies were, of course, the wives of the three fallen members. Every employee category within Kodiak RCMP is represented in that video, including the volunteers, including the custodian. Everybody was included because they were all part of Kodiak. They all shared the same experience that night and for the days after. What we did was we put this video out on the evening of June 3rd at about 8:15 in the evening. No news release, because there didn't need to be a news release. The video spoke for itself. It said what we as the RCMP wanted to say to the community of Greater Moncton, Canada and the world for that matter. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being behind us. Well, before we knew it, it was going viral. It was showing up at 11 o'clock and 10 o'clock on the major newscasts of the day. So it was on the national news in the evening, the local news in the evening. But the reason we put it out the night before was we wanted to make sure that that video was circulating when people woke up in the morning, when people were having their cereal, when people were going to pick up their coffee. What were they going to talk about on June the 4th? Because we didn't want them, as the RCMP, we didn't want them to relive June the 4th. So it was our opportunity to say 1 year later, thank you. Thank you for being behind us. As you saw, a very simple video. I shot it all with my iPhone, no special lighting, just what was in every room. And that was it. We used Final Cut because we have that program to edit it and put it together. The background music was actually an instrumental piece written specifically for the Regimental Funeral by a member of the RCMP in New Brunswick who plays the fiddle. So that's the significance of the music that we used for that piece. So did it work? Yeah, within 24 hours, we had 24,000 views on YouTube. People were sharing it. People were talking about it. They weren't reliving the incident. They were talking about, oh, geez, the RCMP are thanking us. Why? We should be thanking them. Here is the effect that this video had that I didn't think was going to have. You could feel a heaviness within the Kodiak detachment for that entire year. Once we did the video, you could feel the mood change within the building. It just kind of lifted. What it did was, what this video did was it created closure in a sense for not only the community at large, but for all of our employees within Kodiak, because they participated, they were a part of it. It was as simple as just holding a whiteboard that said, thank you, merci. But it was an opportunity for them to get engaged with the community and say, thank you. And in the days that followed, and I was in the detachment quite often, I noticed immediately a change in the feeling within that building. So when you're putting together videos and you have, or a campaign and you have one intention, there may be a secondary one that you weren't even thinking of. And that was what it was for us, was a change in the mood within the Kodiak RCMP. Facebook versus Twitter. I think most of you probably know that Facebook would be the heart of social media. That's where the emotion is. Twitter is that hard-hitting news, get that information out. And we really saw that during the June 4th incident. The news, we put out hard and heavy on Twitter. It got the shares, the retweets. We put the same information on Facebook. Yes, it moved through the system, but not at the same pace. But as the events unfolded and moved along, what we saw were people commenting more and more on Facebook. Thank you, appreciate what you're doing. Love the fact that you're updating us. So recognize that the two are on social media, but they're followed for people for different reasons in a sense, or have a different opportunity. Facebook is still the leading social media. I think Instagram is, as you said earlier this morning, is moving ahead. Twitter is still not there yet, but it's interesting that people will go to Twitter when they know that interesting breaking news is happening in their community. So video, we've used it with that one shot that I took of Danny playing in the water was a one continuous 2-minute video, that was it. The video you just watched was a 4-minute video. And when we looked at the analytics, people watched it to the end. They weren't cutting out of it because they wanted to watch it. So we had our internet child exploitation unit come to us and say, we've got a file. We've made an arrest. This individual was on the internet sexually exploiting children. Was part of a major operation called Project Hydra. Our partners at York Regional Police were involved, as well as the RCMP and FBI. So it was pretty major. The individual was arrested, and as the course of the investigation went on, more information became revealed to the investigators. They needed to find victims. Where could these victims be? So we put together a video, and I'm going to show it to you right now, on how we sent the message out about trying to find victims of sexual exploitation.
I'm Constable Julie Rogers-Marsh with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in New Brunswick, Canada. We're seeking help to identify possible victims of a man who had been sexually exploiting boys online from at least January 2012 until the fall of 2014. 24-year-old man from Moncton, New Brunswick has been arrested and charged with sex-related offenses. The possible victims, boys between the ages of 10 and 16, may not even be aware they've been victimized. Investigators have determined this man was luring boys by pretending to be a teenage girl. He made contact through live video chats on various social media sites. He used a video of a teenage girl that appeared to be live and convinced the boys to undress and initiate sex acts, which he then taped and distributed via the internet. We believe there may be more than 2,000 victims from around the world. So far, we have confirmed there were victims from Canada, the United States, the United Kingdom, and Russia. The man used the names and email accounts that you see on your screen to contact his victims. We want anyone who may have been chatting online, someone using those names, to contact their local police or the RCMP in New Brunswick at the email you will see at the end of this video. Those who may be a victim are encouraged to come forward and assist police with the investigation. Please share this video so we can reach as many people and potential victims as possible. Thank you.
So the call for action was included in the video. This video, the text, was the news release we issued that day. We weren't creating extra copy. We just had our media relations officer, Constable Julie Rogers-Marsh, read the entire thing on video. We shot it in our boardroom, which has the fancy backdrop that allows for the branding so that when the video got circulated, people would know this was from the RCMP and it was a credible source and that they could believe the information that was in that video. So we put it up and we posted it on our website. We put it out, linked on Twitter, and we also put it on Facebook. But we weren't sure if this would go viral. Would people share this? Yes, it's interesting. We asked people to share it, but would they feel that they would be affected, that they could help? So we weren't sure if it was going to move. So what we did, or what I did, was we have about 75 to 80 verified law enforcement accounts that follow us on Twitter. I sent a direct message to each and every one of them. So I'm using social media to engage, but in a totally different manner now. I'm doing the backside, the direct message. And I think some of you in this room received that direct message. And we asked, please tweet our latest tweet. We put the link to the news release so that people, those at law enforcement agencies would know that this was, again, coming from a legitimate source. And then we also asked, can you please let us know if you've done it? To keep that conversation, that connection going, so that there was the back and forth, so that once they've done it and said, yeah, we did it, I could then go on DM and say, thank you very much, greatly appreciate it. This is kind of the response we got, and this is just a few. The FBI retweeted it for us. The FBI has approximately 1 million followers, a little over 1 million followers. The LAPD HQ went one step further for us. We didn't ask. They translated into Spanish for their Spanish audience. We would never have reached that audience on our own, so it spread again. The Cheshire Police is a UK police agency. They retweeted it on our behalf. The reason we reached out to the UK was myself and my colleague Paul Green, our manager of strategic comms, were in Birmingham for the conference last fall. So at the end of every conference, Lori, you will send out this email with an Excel spreadsheet of everybody's contact information. That's what I used. I sent an email to all the UK forces and asked them, could you please retweet it? Here's the link. We need your help because we think there's victims in the UK. Well, they did it. And this is what happened. We got a call from UK newspapers and Irish newspapers asking about this project and our attempt to identify victims. There was no news release put out anywhere in the UK. The only way traditional media would have heard about it is by watching social media. So we were able to get that message around the world. So what's interesting is that we're collecting information and we're still getting tips and people are calling, we're getting information, the investigators are happy. But this, again, was another secondary bonus of reaching out to all those law enforcement agencies across North America and the UK. When our investigators had information that led them to a particular community and they wanted to call that local police department, when they called, they didn't have to explain themselves. Why? Because that local police agency had already heard about it through social media. They were aware of it. So that introduction time was cut down and we could get right to exchanging information. We also had unsolicited information from law enforcement agencies in the US that called us, that said, we've got a file that might be related. You might be interested. So again, we got information that we didn't have to go out and seek. It was coming back to us. So are we hitting our social media target? For the RCMP New Brunswick, we think so. We believe so. You can look at all the numbers and followers and tweets and likes and reshares, but our gauge goes right back to our communications objective, using communications to solve and prevent crime. So is that what we're doing? Are we having that kind of success? And yes, we are. I don't know if you can see the comments from Facebook here, but we were able to recover, just a few examples, recover a bike, find a missing person. That's always the best one. And we sent out a warning because we've had a rash of thefts from vehicles in the last couple of weeks. And people would then share it to their friends who they knew. I'll give you one more interesting story about the success of Facebook and Twitter. Was we had a break and enter into some cottages during the middle of winter, actually between Christmas and New Year's one year. So the investigators worked on the file. In July, so 7 months after the incident, the investigators are just lost. They don't know how can we get information to identify, because we had pictures, there were surveillance cameras attached to some of these cottages that were ransacked. And we said, well, we'll put it on social media for you. We put it out the next afternoon, so 24 hours after, because we put it in the afternoon one day, and then the next afternoon we got a call from the investigating officer that said, thank you very much. And we said, why? He said, well, I've got a call identifying who the individuals were in the photo. You'll never get the mother of one of the 3 boys seen in the picture. She ratted out her own son. But that was, so 7 months had gone by for the investigators to work on it. They weren't getting any information, but then we put it on social media, and that's the response. We also saw the response here. This is back in June the 4th again, when we asked not to report the location of police, because we weren't, again, sure. Was the shooter on social media? Was he following us? Did he have people who were following us and then advising him? So we put this out. Moncton was a ghost town. Like nothing moved except for police and the media in the community. Government offices shut down, stores shut down for an entire day. My city was shut down for 30 hours, nothing moved. But people were watching this, and again, when you build up your credibility bank account, we had people going on chastising those who were saying, oh, the police just passed me on such and such a street. People would go on and say, didn't you know the police said not to do that? Please take down, delete your tweet, delete your Facebook account. So the community was jumping on board. So for us, we were hitting our target. We had a call to action. The public was responding. So the importance of following and monitoring your social media accounts is very, very important, because social media is two-way. People see it, as we've heard already this morning. The public see it as a way to communicate with their police agency. How can we get in touch with them? What can we do? So I'm not sure if you could read it up here, but this was an individual shortly after the incident began who basically asked us, do you think it would help if people put on their lights in the neighborhood, their outside lights? Would it help police light up the scene? And my media relations officer at the time, Constable Damien Ontario, said, yes, perfect. He tweeted out that information. And the secondary ripple effect that came from that is people in the greater Moncton area turned on their lights where the shooter was to light up the area. But people around the world started tweeting pictures and putting pictures on Facebook. I've just turned on my outside light. I don't have an outside light. I've lit this candle in memory of what's happening in Moncton to support the people of Moncton. This one here with the love sign, this is a Canadian who lives in New York City. He says, I don't have an outside light, so I've turned this on for you. So it really gives you an idea of what can happen when your message goes viral. So remember, I talked about beginning, middle, and end. So the beginning was we got the request of, would it be a good idea if people turn on their lights? We said yes, we put out that information. The end is we thanked the individual who gave us the idea. We sought him out, we found him. And we said, thank you. Your suggestion helped catch a killer. You played a role. And we thanked him and gave him a memento on behalf of the RCMP New Brunswick. Remember to close your loops when you're doing social media. It does take a full circle when you're talking about a story. So again, the call to action here, in terms of, this was the Project Hydra, which was the joint operation with York Regional, FBI, and the RCMP. So we were pleased when people started sharing it and we had that call to action in there. And, as I mentioned, it opened doors for us in places that we didn't expect. So I'm not saying don't look at your numbers, because it's always nice to pat yourself on the back when you see an increase in your numbers. This gives you kind of an idea of where we rank. So we're a pretty small police agency in the country when you look at it. But in terms of rankings on number of followers and likes, we're fourth in the country when we look at Canadian police forces. And in Twitter, we're eighth behind some of the major users. But we're happy with that. But you know what? It's not the numbers and the ranking that's important. It's who is following us and are they engaged in the community. That's what's important. That's what you have to look at. And Facebook, a lot of police agencies are shying away from Facebook because of the comment section. But like I said, go at it slowly. Know what you want to use it for. And that's where you're going to get greater engagement from the public, is through the Facebook. Because as I said, it's more the heart of social media than the Twitter feed is. So, as I said, we talked about the numbers and, put into perspective, you can see your numbers go up and down and everything. But don't be discouraged if you only have a small number of followers, especially if those followers are engaged. Toronto Police Service, for example, has a number of district accounts and officer accounts because they're communicating directly to the neighborhood. So don't worry if you only have small numbers. Make sure that the people that are following you are engaged, that when you put out your call to action, they're listening to you and they're doing something about it. Because when you think about it, well, it was great that we received a reach of 850,000 with the video of Danny. But what if every one of our tweets and our messages got that many? Is that good? I would think not, because the message is spread too wide. We want to focus in on those people who can respond to our call of action and help police in their local community. So think of it in that kind of perspective as well. This gives you an idea of where social media has grown in the province of New Brunswick. We have in all of our accounts, French and English, and we're talking YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and you get some duplication because some people will follow you on both accounts. We have about 99,000. That was probably a couple of weeks ago when I put the presentation together. The next two numbers show you the audience of the largest newspaper circulation in New Brunswick. We're double it. It also shows you the largest television 6 p.m. news audience. We're double it. So what we're able to do then is we're able to communicate directly to the public. We're not ignoring the traditional media at all, but it allows us to get our message to the public and the media at the same time. So here's one other campaign. We just did this one, the long weekend in August. We have a civic holiday in Canada, the first Monday in August. And in New Brunswick, the statistics have shown to us that this is the weekend we have the most impaired driving fatalities. Why? Because people are going to the cottage, they're celebrating, partying with their friends, they're going boating, it's nice weather, and that's when we saw impaired driving fatalities peak for us over a calendar year. So what did we do? Well, if you watch social media, you'll see trends, and you saw one we used with the Kodiak video, a whiteboard, a simple message. You see that a lot. We said, okay, why don't we do that? But what we did was we went out and reached 5 members of the RCMP in New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island, which is called the Maritime Provinces. And the area is so small that you can get from one province to the other in less than 2 hours. So a lot of people are related and will travel. So we joined up with our other 2 divisions, and we put together this campaign, and we called it 5 More Reasons Not to Drink and Drive. Why? Because lists are popular on social media. You'll see that, okay? And so what we did was we put these stories together, and on the whiteboard was a quote, and we directed everybody back to our website in terms of knowing that, again, this is coming from us, and we are the authority and providing credible information. I'm getting the wrap-up single. Drive campaign that I just talked about. The result for us, there was not one fatal impaired driving fatality that weekend that we ran the campaign. To us, those are the results. Was it a fluke? We don't know. But we ran that campaign for the entire week leading into the weekend. People were getting that message time and time again. And we repeated it twice, 3 times a day, because you're going to get different audiences at different times of the day. So don't be scared to repeat your message. In case you missed it, use it, because you will see different audiences at different times. So to wrap up, when we look at using social media, for us, it always comes back to that question: can we use it? How can we use it to solve and prevent crime? So all of our efforts on social media are dictated by that objective. So we know that that's what we have to do. We put some PR stuff on, but very little. Well, you can see 3 to 4 posts from us every day on news releases of crime that's happened, of successful investigations. So we're always constantly on social media doing that. And I guess I want to wrap up this way when we talk about social media versus traditional media. And I'll leave you with this thought. We've been in the past really caught up with making sure we get a news conference, we get a news release out, we get information out to the media. Now, I'll ask all of you in here, when you've sent that information out to the media, has the media ever called you with a tip on an investigation you were working on? No. But if you send it out on social media to the general public of the community that you police, you will get tips because you're communicating directly to them, from the police service to the community. You will hear back from them. They'll call you. So you can't ignore the media because not everybody's on social media. But think of it in that perspective. In terms of trying to generate tips and conclude investigations, you want to talk directly using social media to your public and to the people that you police and the community you police. Here's our social media accounts. Please feel free to write them down. Feel free to like us and to follow us. And I'll leave you with this. If you see anything from us, please retweet it. Please share. Thank you.
That was fantastic. Thank you. All right, Alex, thank you so much. That was fantastic. I'm going to turn over to Phil in just a second, but I wanted to point out that we are trending all the hashtag engines. We trended us all due to your awesome tweets. Thank you very much. And I want to introduce Emily. Emily Vasher is with Facebook. She's our keynote today. She's going to book it out of here at 4 o'clock. And I know some of you want to talk to her. She's perfectly willing to talk with you. Just make sure you do it before 4 or before 3 when she goes on. And I know she's got an errand to run here in a second, but catch her, and she's really friendly. So go ask your questions. Phil.
Again, just to echo Lori, thank you very much, Alex. That was
Oh, no problem.
a ton of great information. We really appreciate it. We're going to take our lunch break now. So we're going to take our break, and we're going to reconvene at approximately 1:15. So it's just shy of an hour by a few minutes. And we'll have a panel discussion then. So I'd ask if you're on the panel or taking part in the panel discussion, if you could come up to the podium just for a few minutes right now, that'd be great. Enjoy your lunch. Thank you.